Please pray with me. God, may the words of my mouth and the meditation in each heart be acceptable in your sight, for you are our strength and our Redeemer. Before I forget to tell you, on the way out today, I'd like you to pick up a special bookmark. We begin today what we're calling Season of Creation. And we've done this every year for the first 4 Sundays in September. And each Sunday we'll highlight a different part of creation. And so today you have a bookmark that actually signifies creation. So on the way out, they'll have it there for you at the back, so please pick one up. So here we are, celebrating creation. Everything God has made for us, for us. This Sunday we highlight ocean. And I think it's appropriate because without ocean, without water, there would be nothing. I have to say this, I love the Message version that was read. Thank you, Giselle. Because it's like, so, are you there? You who think you know everything. And you know what? God was speaking to Job, but God might as well have been speaking to us. You know? So you know how everything works? So you're taking good care of it? Who do you think you are? That's kind of where we are. We are the stewards, the caregivers, the caretakers of all of creation and, I don't know. I'm a little ashamed because we have not done a very good job. And what I want to talk to you about today is how wonderfully everything was made. There was divine wisdom in every single part of creation. Today in the book of Job, we see one of 7 creation narratives in the Bible, 7 of them. And this one basically says, I did it all. And I did it exactly the way I wanted it to be. That's what God did. God created everything exactly the way God wanted it to be. And that includes us. God created each and every one of us exactly the way God wanted us to be. So some of us are tall. I'm not one of those. Some of us are short. You are one of them. Some of us have this talent or that talent. All of us have gifts to share. I could not help but take note of that this past weekend. In case you don't read Facebook, and I'm sure there's some of you like me who don't do that, Elizabeth and I were on our way home from a wonderful evening of playing some really strange game called Right, Left, Center. Oh, some of you know the game. Okay. Which I think is rigged, but that's only my personal opinion about it. And we were rear-ended. As we turned left, when the light changed, someone rear-ended us. And I took chase because they left. And God protected me the whole way. And as I was chasing this person to get their tag and report them, not to, kill them or anything like that, but they drove into our neighborhood. And I'm going, Elizabeth, they're in our neighborhood. Why are they in our neighborhood? And then of all the streets in our neighborhood, they turned down our street. I'm going, what are you telling me, God? What are you telling me? So I turned and God just said, pull in the driveway, you're done. I pulled in the driveway and I was done. And I thought, God took care of us because if any of you have a Prius, let me just do my little promotion. The rear bumper of the Prius has springs behind it. We've been rear-ended twice now. Wow. Both times, there's a little tiny mark on that bumper, but it springs. That's what it does. The first time I took it to the dealership, I said, we were really hit hard. We were out on Interstate 95 at a dead stop in traffic when a huge van plowed into us. And I know he was trying as hard as he could to stop, but he did not succeed. And I took it in, and they said, oh, it's fine, there's springs in there. I said, there are springs? How clever is that? And if some of you remember, and I know not because you were there, I'm not saying that, but when they first made automobiles, they had springs in the bumpers, I guess for just such a time as this. And so now we have gone back to that. Anyway, I say that because God takes care of us, and God knows exactly what we're supposed to be doing. It's the divine wisdom of God that should guide our lives. And I believe guided us that evening not to be seriously hurt and to finally give up the chase, which I did when I pulled in the driveway. And I say that because I have to admit this to you. I know God has a plan for everything on earth. Every creature, every tree, and certainly for the ocean. But sometimes we think we know better. This morning, on the way here, we came down Phillips Highway, US 1 from Jacksonville, where we live, and there was a turtle in the road. It wasn't this big. It was probably this big. And she was working really hard to get across all 4 lanes and the median of Phillips Highway. I will put you right back up here because I love you on the phone. And I looked at the turtle, and I looked at Elizabeth, and I said, I guess we should turn back and make sure she makes it across okay. And so we did the U-turn, and we get back, and she's booking it. I'm telling you, this little turtle, crossing the road as hard as she can, and a car is coming, and we went, oh no. And the car went over her. She went into her shell, and then she came back out of her shell. And Elizabeth got out and encouraged her further over into the ditch on the other side of the road. And when we did that, I thought, here we are, interfering with God's divine wisdom. Now, have you ever thought about that? That when we do things, we may very well be interfering with God's divine wisdom. Of course, sometimes we're just messing things up. But other times, I don't know how many of you have watched some of those videos and those shows of what happens in Africa. Now, I would go there and save every single animal that a lion was trying to kill. I would be out there, I would be shooing them away, I'd be making noise, I'd be doing something. I would put myself out on the Serengeti plain and I would make sure lions never got anything to eat. And then I would feel so bad when they die. I mean, it's like one of these things.
Had to feed them.
I really can't even envision not interfering. And yet part of me knows deep down, and I guess I've probably said it a few times, it is God's way when the hawks come down and find food. They come in the trees and they grab a squirrel. And they go into nests and they grab the babies. And I feel so badly about it. But somehow we have to come to know that just like God told Job, everything was planned exactly the way I want it to be. And so our responsibility as humanity is to do all we can to make sure it stays the way God wanted it to be. I look at pictures of forest fires, which are raging once again in the western part of the United States. And I was listening to them say, you know, sometimes forest fires start because of careless campers, thrown out cigarette butts, or something like that. But sometimes fires start because of lightning. And lightning strikes and the forest burns. And if you've ever been around an area that's been burned, when we had the fires in this area some years ago down toward Palm Coast, if you've ever been around when they're doing controlled burns at many of our state parks, you look and you think, oh my gosh, look, and then if you wait a while and you come back, there is new growth. I don't know if you realize it or not. I love this trivia that is somehow stored in my mind. I have no idea where there's room for it, but the pine tree, pine cones, they don't open and put their seeds out unless they experience fire. They don't. They're just, and squirrels will eat them, but they don't open up until there's fire. And so these controlled burns, which you see in so many of the areas where there are lots of pines, afterward you see all these little pine trees coming up. God's divine wisdom allows for everything to renew. In the spring, so many of us, conscientious people, do our tree trimming, all the things we're supposed to do. You don't trim everything at the same time. You try to do it according to what you think would be the way that it should be done. And then you watch and you wait. And lately I've been watching and quite frankly concerned about the lack of rain in this area. Really, it's been terrible. We even put the sprinkler on the roses. We try not to have to water very much here. Put the sprinkler on the roses. Then when we got word that in fact a hurricane is coming. To those of you who are not from Florida, I hate to tell you, that really was not a hurricane. I mean, even though they named it, even though it was a Category 1 for a brief moment, it was really not a hurricane. But you know what it did? It brought the rain. You see, these storms, and we're going to have Storm Sunday, and I'll talk more about that on that Sunday, but things are made to happen all to benefit the earth if they are from God. And God's divine wisdom is what should motivate us in everything we do. I wonder how many of us think about that. Think about God's divine wisdom and what that should mean for us. I wonder how many of us, as we're praying about things that we should be doing, are willing to allow God's divine wisdom to motivate us and to direct us. I say this because, and I was in the announcement, I was saying, a lot of us pray and we get the answer, but we choose not to do it. I'm guilty. I've been there too. Please know this without a shadow of a doubt. If God calls us, God's divine wisdom will guide us and we'll be given every tool we need to complete what God has called us to do. Now, I can guarantee this to you because I've seen it happen so many times. And what I want you to know is more of us have to step out in faith, yes, and do what we're being called to do. And, oh well, might as well tell you this. I hate to bring you bad news every once in a while. In God's divine wisdom, there is no mandatory retirement age. Did you hear that? In God's divine wisdom, there is no mandatory retirement age. Isn't that right? Yes, yes. Because, just because you might be older does not mean you don't have lost your gifts. Absolutely not. Doesn't mean that you have not gained lots and lots of wisdom over your years. And God can still use us. Maybe not in the same way, maybe not at the same job, maybe not even in the same place. But we are all, till the day we die, on God's payroll. Okay? No time cards, no late slips. God's payroll, my friends, is 24/7, 365. God's payroll says, if I can't get through to you during the day, I will wait till you're asleep. And you will have a dream. And the dream will be me talking to you, telling you what I want you to know. Anybody ever had dreams like that? I have. It's like, oh, is that what you were trying to say all day? And I wasn't paying attention. You see, God is always going to let us know what we should be doing. Many years ago, there was the saying, what would Jesus do? And it was really quite good, and a lot of people did pay attention to it. But every day should be about, what is God's divine wisdom in this? What is it that God would want me to do to fulfill my responsibility as the caretaker of this earth? It may be as simple as not using any pesticides on your lawns. It may be as simple as not overwatering. And a day hardly doesn't ever go by when we're driving around that I don't see sprinklers on at some complex and rain at the same time. And I know there are sprinklers that are sensitive to rain. They all should have them. But there's always going to be something that we can do to be in the center of God's plan. My friends, during the next year and a half, as we have an interim pastor here, there's going to be special work being done. And all that work will be around one purpose, God's purpose, getting this congregation ready for the next step in its life. And so we have been here for almost 20 years. We've been working very hard. We've been accomplishing a lot, but there is still so much to do. We spent some time at Flagler College with a table the other day. And while we were there, it became very apparent to me. People don't even know we exist. Of course, students come from lots of different places, and I kind of expect that. But when we have other businesses and local people who are still finding out about us for the first time, we have lots to do. Now, why would we want people to know about us? We want people to know they have a place to come where every single person is welcome. No matter what. No matter what. We don't put any requirement about coming here. We open the doors to everyone. And everyone who comes here, I sincerely pray, hears the message. You are exactly the way God wanted you to be. Exactly the way God wanted you to be. And so you need to be listening for God's divine wisdom in your life. I want you to do that this week. I always try to tell you something that I think you should be getting out of this whole message of mine. And this week it's about listening. Listening to what God is calling you to do. This week it's about listening and following through. Do not be afraid. Those are the words that Jesus used in talking to Simon. Do not be afraid. From now on, you will be fishing for people. And I tell each and every one of you, do not be afraid. God will never call you to do something you can't do. And if you're even doubting a little, God will provide all the help you need. We need to trust in God's divine wisdom. Please pray with me. God, we come to you today on this first Sunday of the seasons of creation, and we come to say thank you. Thank you for this creation. Thank you for creating everything that we have. Thank you for continuing to give us all that we need in this life. God, empower us now to be your faithful servants so that we can help you bring heaven to earth. Amen. Please remain seated.